right before the. Okay. All right, welcome everyone. Good evening. It is 6:30 on November the 8th. So we will officially call this regular board meeting to order. I've lost my agenda in all these papers. Surprise, surprise. All right, so we'll get started with the roll call as if it's not the same every time. So our roll call, I'm Carly Hoover, they, them, Director District 1.
Dave Larson, Director District 5.
Jan
Edna
Buller
Moore.
Jack.
Go ahead, Jen.
Jan Buller Jack, District 2.
Edna Morris, District 4.
And it's still representing.
Great. Thank you so much. And is this mine? Or you were just sharing with me? Okay. Because I'm a mess.
Oh.
It's also on screen. Welcome, everyone. This is a long Tuesday. All right, so we'll start with our flag salute. So I invite you, if you are comfortable and interested, to stand up and join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And welcome to all of our guests, both in person and online. So very glad that you are spending this evening with us, investing in the business of the district. So for our kind of welcome message and land acknowledgement, I'm going to go ahead and do that for us this evening. So these that you see on the screen there are our group agreements borrowed from the Courageous Conversations. So this idea that as we are engaging in board business and dialogue and conversation with one another, we are staying engaged, experiencing discomfort and being vulnerable, speaking your truth, and expecting and accepting non-closure. And so for our land, actually, before I get to the land acknowledgement, just a quick reminder that we also have, in addition to those agreements from Courageous Conversation, a much more comprehensive and detailed list of some board operating agreements. And as I always state, it is everybody's, it takes everybody to make sure that we are all holding each other accountable for the work that we need to be doing as a team and as a district. So there are some ways that we as a board have identified ways that we want to engage in that work together. So I encourage you as folks that we are accountable to help hold us accountable in those ways. So now I'll center us on our land acknowledgement. So we in the Tukwila School District acknowledge the land where we teach, collaborate, learn, and play is the traditional land of the people, the first people of Seattle, the Duwamish and Muckleshoot people, past and present, and honor with gratitude the land itself and the Duwamish and Muckleshoot tribes. As a public school district, we have a responsibility for the stewardship of this land, and we recognize the Duwamish and Muckleshoot people who have been living and working here since time immemorial. All right, so we will now move to the approval of our agenda. And we actually have two amendments to this evening's agenda. And I want to just apologize to Director Bolajak and Director Morris. We just had a very quick sidebar here. Unfortunately, they're both online. And so this is the first time they're hearing this. So we are going to table for now the behaviorist and discipline data discussion for a variety of reasons. The biggest of which is we are really hoping to have that conversation in dialogue with some of the amazing folks that are working in schools around this work. And that just wasn't quite able to come together this evening. And so we are going to table that for another time. The second thing we have an executive session. That's agenda item 11. We are tabling that. As you see, Dr. Hernan is not here today. And so that piece will be tabled for another time. So we'll be having a special session on Saturday where that executive session will be taking place. If I could receive a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? about those. All in favor of approval of the agenda?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay, so the agenda stands approved as amended. So with that, we will move to our first opportunity for public comments. So as a reminder, there are multiple ways to provide public comments. You can do so here in person by signing up on the sheet at the front. You can also raise your hand and or type your name into the chat.
One that was received.
And then we received one written public comment. Yes. Director Bowler Jack, are you willing to speak to what you just spoke or what you just posted? I would really, I think that would be really valuable to take a second and pause and do.
Sure, I just wanted to acknowledge the tragedy that happened in Seattle schools, specifically at Ingram with the shooting death of one of the students and the impact that that has on our superintendent whose son attends that school. So I would just hold them all in deep thought and continue to pledge to make our schools as safe as we can and safe for all of our students. Thank you for letting me make that.
Yes, of course. Thank you so much for bringing that forward. Okay. All right, so we did receive one public, written public comment. Sorry, I did not have it pulled up. Give me one moment. I got it now. Okay, and I just want to acknowledge as well that it seems that this public comment was perhaps intended for yesterday. There, I think, was a technical difficulty with the online form. Not sure if it was an impact of the power outage that we had or the power outages that we had, but either way, I just want to name that this public comment was received, but was likely for yesterday. It's still relevant to an agenda item we have today. So this public comment is coming from Pam Carter. It says, "Dear Tukwila School Board, I have just one thing I would like you to consider before approving new director districts. I realize that the district boundaries are drawn so that are equal in population, but what about the proportions of the population in multifamily housing? When a director district is majority apartments or multifamily housing, it can be very difficult to find a person to represent that district. I certainly think that there are many renters and folks in multifamily housing who would make excellent members of the Tukwila School Board, but they tend to not step forward. Additionally, many of Tukwila's multifamily residents are not eligible to sit on the board as they are not U.S. citizens. My concerns are rooted in TSD history. For many years, it was difficult to find someone to represent Director District 4. I can remember one time when no one filed to run for a vacant seat, so King County elections extended the filing period. No one filed, so it was up to the Tukwila School Board to appoint someone to fill the vacancy, but no one applied, even though the opening was widely advertised. The next step was for the Puget Sound ESD to appoint someone. Eventually, someone was convinced to apply and the position was filled. It seems to me that it would make sense to draw the boundaries so that one director district is not predominantly composed of multifamily housing. Please take this into consideration before approving the new districts. Thank you for taking into account this issue." Thank you, Pam, for your comment. And again, I'm deeply sorry if this was intended for yesterday. Anyone else needing to provide public comment? Okay.
I think we have an email update. This version will be doing the rest of it.
Right on. Perfect. Then we will go ahead and move on to the reports. Just reiterating as well, if there's an additional opportunity for public comment at the end. One of the reasons for that public comment at the end is so that as we're engaging in conversation, as you're hearing things come up throughout this meeting, it gives you the opportunity to write down some notes, questions that you may have, and bring those for consideration at the end of the meeting. So definitely take advantage of that if that interests you. So now we start our report. So we'll start with our race and equity report, and we have Ms. Herda here to provide that report.
Hi, I wasn't sure if I was actually doing it or not. Sorry. So Dr. Hernan asked me this morning if I could do the report. But I was not at yesterday's race and equity meeting, so he also asked me to talk about the Elevating Youth Voice of Color project that we're working on. So Showalter Middle School's Ethnic Studies Department is working with PSESD's Elevating Youth Voice on an action research project. And we're also partnering with Director Hoover and Danny and Dr. Borshade to go to the convenings sorry, I'm so out of it right now. It's like it just took me out of twice. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're all right.
Sorry, it's just I'm having a hard time seeing what's going on. So we're working with Elevating Youth's Voice of Color on a student project throughout the year. And many of us will be partnering with 6 different convenings with the roadmap region. There we go, they have it now. And then for the race and equity meeting, I can just say that they talked about an opportunity with PSESD going to training with Mohammed Khalifa, who does culturally responsive education. And there are, right now there's funding, PSESD fund 4 positions. So 1 principal and 2 race and equity leads will be able to go to this training, and we're looking into more funding. The district is still working with PSESD with some race and equity training, and we're looking at what the training will be for whole district. And then I can forward along the minutes from yesterday's meeting to the board so you can see all the other things that they talked about. Do you have any questions?
I do have one question. I know it's come up a few times in the last few race equity reports around the race and equity toolkit. And I think that that was something that the district race and equity team was potentially looking on. Is that still in process?
Can you
Or is
clarify?
that- Yeah, or was I totally mistaken that the district race and equity team was looking at the race and equity toolkit?
I mean, it's always been under examination, but it's pretty much exactly what PSESD uses. And so it's not really something that was going to be transformed. Something that we did talk about was that so there's some misconceptions about how the tool is used. And so it's not like a checklist to be used. It's a way to have conversation before making the decisions. And so just making sure that people are using this as their decision-making tool before the decisions are made. And what's been kind of happening across the district as people are getting used to using it is that it's used to like, see, did you do this? Did you do this? Did you do this? But really it's about having the conversation with the stakeholders before you make a decision and send out the decision to the district.
Thank you, Erin. That was helpful. Any other questions for Erin? So sorry if I caught you off guard with that. Thank you very much.
No worries.
Nice to hear your voice, and thanks for providing that update.
Awesome, thank you.
All right, and I'm just checking to see if Ms. Maestro is here. It doesn't look like it, which is okay. But from what I understand, there's just a very brief code report around the vaccination clinic. But I don't even know that. Could you, Aaron, would you mind sharing?
Sure. The next vaccine clinic is being held tomorrow from 3 to 6 p.m. at Tukwila Elementary, and then in 3 weeks we'll have the follow-up clinic. And there are boosters and vaccines available for COVID-19 as well as early childhood vaccines and immunization. All there, and the school nurse team has been referring students to that particular clinic. And then, is there something? I think that'll be it for now.
Great. Awesome. Okay, wonderful. Then we will move on now to our consent agenda, which is the approval of the minutes from October 25th and approval of warrants.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you so much. All right. So moving now to our questions only presentation. So we have two this evening, the new teacher academy and elementary coaches. So we'll start with the, can I go down the list? Start with the new teacher academy. So what additional questions do folks have?
I do have a question about the New Teacher Academy. So I know that the teachers do get some type of support and some type of coaching. The question is there like a system for the teachers to give feedback on the type of support that they're receiving and whether like it's working or it's not working?
Thank you, Representative. Once there is avenues for the teacher, the early career teacher to provide feedback and receive additional support or augment the support that they're receiving.
Director Bolerjack or Morris, any additional questions from either of you?
No.
Glad to see that the availability of substitutes has increased. I know that was a big challenge throughout COVID and last year. Also really glad that to see that that's been a little bit better. Okay. Great. So elementary coaches. So I think this is less a question and I think more just a comment around coaching. I am a firm believer in the benefits of coaching, professional development. That's what my whole work is centered around. So I very much see the value. And also, I know that coaching, because it is so individualistic, it's individual based on the person that's being coached. And it's co-created by the coach and the coachee, that it's hard to measure, right? Hard to have specific deliverables or outcomes. And at the same time, we're thinking about the financial component, the amount of money that we're spending on coaches. It's important to make sure that it's actually helping us move towards our goals, right, as a district, or rather, it's actually centering, the students. Is this coaching helping us serve our students better, right? Whether that's through more effective leadership, as an administrator or whatnot. So when I see the number that last year, we spent $84,247, sorry, $84,245 on coaching. And when asked, there's not a lot of concrete information about how that coaching has benefited those individuals or the district. And so to me, it feels like that's $84,000 that we can't actually say in a meaningful way how it was spent to support our district work. And knowing that we are budgeting a reasonable amount of money for folks to invest in coaching, I want to make sure that it is actually serving that need. And so I guess like, I know that we're working to some degree off of establishing that structure now. But I feel like before we continue to approve new coaches being contracted with, I think we have to have a better understanding of how we're going to ensure that that coaching is actually supporting the district work. Just my thoughts there. Director Bolerjack, I believe you had your hand raised.
I did, thank you. I also, agree with Carly in that the role of coaches is critical in a lot of ways. And I've benefited from coaches along the way, helping me to work through situations that I wasn't functioning as highly as I wanted to, bringing in their expertise. And that's the primary reason I think that we have coaches. But there's a secondary effect, I believe, in the way that the person being coached is able to use that coaching language with those around them. And so they also become coaches. And as they experience someone wanting them to be successful, they transfer that also to help others around them be successful. So I would like us to not only track the primary purpose of the coach, but to see how, if we can find examples of how that changes climate among faculty and even with students, in that how our staff approaches helping each other succeed also.
Thank you for that information.
My one other inquiry, my pleasure to ask some more specific question. I know that you're going to follow back up with some more as well, but there are some personal testimonies kind of sprinkled throughout. And in my question previously, it was kind of if that was representative of everyone that received coaching. The answer was no. How many people? Was that just like one input from one person or two people? I guess maybe what I'm trying to get at is like, why? Like, why did we just get 1% input on coaching for this particular report?
So the way the question was worded, it was under elementary coaches. And so that was the focus.
I see. And because there was just, I see. Okay, fair enough. That makes sense. All right, thank you. So I guess with that, the coaching dollars spent $84,000. That was not just on elementary coaches, right? That was on all coaches. Okay, good. Okay, cool. Thanks. Okay, any additional questions, thoughts on coaches? Okay. Great.
Well, actually, sorry. I was looking at the questions and your responses to it, and the question was, what are other reflections there are from last year's coaching cycle? And you said that some of the challenges shared were that TSD is a small district and yet expected to carry out the functions of a large district with more staff. I guess I don't really have a question, more like a comment, just like emphasis on that. I don't know if, obviously we're understaffed, but is there a way that we could more support our staff and especially our principals to kind of carry out their duties and not feel like overburdened?
Good question. there is some. A lot of thought behind that, and I don't know that there is any more, FTE that is set aside for that purpose.
So part of the answer to that question is, we get money allocated from the state at a certain FTE level for schools. And and we're already staffing more than that level. And so then the question is, okay, where do we get the money for that? And the answer is we get it from our local levy. That we, pass for and so ultimately, to have a better support system for our schools, we need to get more money from the state. And the state also restricts how much we can collect locally. So that's an ongoing discussion, and if you come with us down to Olympia in February, we'll talk a lot about that particular issue. So it's almost every school district's contention is that the state is not funding this at the level that we need to be funded to provide what we consider a good quality basic education. And that's an ongoing discussion.
Thank you for that question.
Okay. Not trying to jinx anything. This might be the shortest meeting that I've ever attended. Okay, so that brings us to some action items. So first is the approval of the human resources staffing report.
So moved.
Second.
second, oh, sorry.
Yeah, questions, comments, go for it. Oh, you were just seconding, you didn't have a question. Okay, I thought maybe you did. I think the biggest thing that I would want to less of a question, more of a maybe as a motion around to see a new a new chart, new org chart, with the addition of this, I know the position is new, and so how that fits into everything else, as well as some of the new positions that were not new, refocused positions. So I would like to see those on the org chart. So if we could get that, probably at our next meeting, is that reasonable? Next meeting? Okay.
Review and approval or just review?
Oh,
I don't think the board has to approve org charts.
let's say review, and we'll look into if it needs approval or not. We'll confirm. Feels like it could be, there's monetary things attached to those, right? Well,
But
yeah, we'll look into it. We'll look into it. But, oh, okay, so new org chart, all right, so all in favor of approving the human resources staffing report?
I,
Aye,
Okay, great. So now moving on to our approval of resolution number 925, redistricting director districts to adjust to the 2020 US Census data.
So moved. Second.
Questions, comments?
The only question I have, and I'm sorry I didn't look at this more carefully, is where the multifamily dwellings are. I know there are some in District 2. There are some in District 3. Is that where the majority of them are?
There are some in District 1, kind of in the south side of District 1. Yeah,
And then who has the South Center area?
that's District 5.
So District 5 has some then
Yeah.
on the hill. Yeah,
I
so,
was. Go ahead, Jen.
well, I was just, responding to Pam's comment. we do have multifamily dwellings in several districts, right? Not just one district heavily burdened or heavily delighted in it.
Yeah, I would say, the example that she brought up with District 4, this was before my time, but it's my understanding that, the boundaries were adjusted like, 15, 20 years ago to deal exactly with that issue. So that, as far as I know, the apartments are, reasonably distributed amongst all the districts because of exactly the issue that she brought up.
Right,
That we
right.
couldn't find, but to my understanding, that was dealt with years ago.
Okay.
I think another thing just kind of worth naming, because we've had some conversations about this and when we had discussions around the boundaries, that I think there's some desire to think about what it might look like to put an initiative on the ballot to potentially shift one of these positions to an at-large position. And so having 4 districts and 1 at-large, just to provide more opportunity. That is something that would have to get on the ballot. We have to vote on it. And so that would be a later thing. So we wanted to follow our legal requirement to get things redistricted and then potentially start that conversation. So I think there's possibility to adjust this in a little bit of a different way or approach it in a little bit of a different way moving forward.
And part of that is, we've been having trouble currently getting somebody for
Somebody
District
else.
3.
Yep.
And so, we'll see after this redistricting is gonna jiggle the lines a little bit. So there will be maybe some people in District 3 that weren't there before that now could be there, that hopefully may apply. But if they don't, then the solution of 1 at large would be potentially a solution for that one down the line.
Hope it doesn't take. that
Yeah,
long
I
to
hope
fill it,
not.
but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so with that, all in favor of approving district boundaries?
Uh,
I,
Aye.
All right, so those stand approved, and I'll just say it out loud. If you now live in the newly slightly altered District 3, and you're interested in serving on this amazing board that's doing amazing work or trying to help us all do amazing work, please come do that because we'd love to have you. If you're curious about how to apply, it's online. You can also email me, you can email Deb, anyone. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna be knocking on some doors in the next few weeks. All right, so now moving to the approval of the overnight travel. And just wanted to confirm, did you see, Deb, the updates? Okay, they've already been, of course they were. Thank you so much. Okay, I'll accept a motion for those.
so moved.
All right. Any questions or comments?
So I guess the question that came up, do you know, Mr. Punch, are we doing Prospect Camp this year?
As far as I know. But there should be an alternative.
After that, I do think instead of doing the Osprey camp, we're doing the field trips for educational outdoor educational field trips for the students. So they have, it sounds like they've been excited about that because we heard from their teachers that, they keep asking for it. So I guess sadly, Osprey isn't an option this year, but we are doing some other forms to have them engaged.
Yeah, I'd be interested to hear how that came about and what it is, but that's for another time.
I think my one other question, I appreciate the component around housing on here, that there are gendered cabins. And I guess my one curiosity is if there are any folks that are, do not identify as the binary genders. Has that been considered, talked about with those students, navigated in a way?
Yeah, so I talked with the Lost Goods camp director. What they are going to do is students will be in the cabin that they identify as. So there's only male and female gendered cabins. For students who are non-binary, they would have to be in one of those two.
It's the one that feels most come
Yeah,
up there.
and I would actually look to see if there's any what do you call them, board policies around what does housing look like for students who are non-binary or yeah, I would love to see some direction on that too. If there isn't already something.
Ooh, you and me both, Jeff. Yeah. Okay, all right, so all in favor of approval?
Aye.
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 Right, wonderful. So that brings us to our second and final opportunity for public comment this evening. If you would like to offer public comment, you can do so by typing your name in the chat or using the raise hand function to indicate that you'd like to do so. All right, give me just a second. Sometimes that hand raise thing can be hard to find. Okay, seeing none, then we will move to adjourn our meeting at 7:07.
So moved.
All right. Oh, I guess give me a second. Second.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, thank you so much, everyone. Have a lovely evening. What happens when I don't sleep?